good to go. Okay, so
now.
we'll just jump over. The players are playing with their Paragon tokens to a degree. Looks like it's Toptus versus Spirits, but okay, the game is on now.
Ready to start with a very intense handshake. So Sylvius is on the play here and leads with her wood foothills.
Okay. Okay, so what can you tell us about this matchup?
So, unlike the last time we saw Dredge on camera, this time the Jund deck is trying to be the control. It is trying to stop him from... Sylvius is trying to stop Denis from enacting all of these relatively broken synergies. Denis has a very strong start with Insolent Neonate, which, as we've seen throughout the day, can lead to very, very powerful turn 2 and 3 starts. Sylvius is just setting up his mana base.
Okay. And Denis.
Sylvius is at 19.
Okay. So Sylvius this turn, and he leads.
Inquisition of Kozilek is perhaps not the most favourable mode of interaction against the Dredge deck. It really does sort of help him out a little bit.
Yeah.
And as you can see from the reveal, the only CMC 3 or lower cards in Denis's hands are a Prize Amalgam, which he'd really like in the graveyard, and a Narcomoeba, which has very little relevance in the matchup. That card is in the deck to be milled in a Dredge and summoned for free. Casting it as a 1/1 flyer for 2 is certainly an option, but it's not really where he wants to be.
It's pretty bad value. Yep.
It is certainly the card that gets selected by Sylvius.
Yeah, there's no way you're putting that Prize Amalgam into the graveyard for him.
It gives way too much help to Denis for very little gain on Sylvius's part.
Yeah.
But Denis is using his Insolent Neonate to start dredging, and he's gotten a pretty good hit so far. A Prize Amalgam, a Haunted Dead, a Bloodghast, and another Golgari Grave Troll.
Wow. Okay.
You can't really ask for much better.
That seems pretty great, yeah. Okay, and we haven't seen the Haunted Dead yet. I think it's just a one-of in this deck.
Yeah. The keystone of these sorts of strategies is standard. Only a one-of in the modern builds, simply because it costs 2 mana to use, and this deck can easily go off in the first turn or 2, and 2 mana is just a little costly.
Yeah. Still a powerful effect. You do get to get rid of 2 cards in the process.
Yeah, and discarding 2 cards to trigger all of your Prized Amalgams, especially if you were to discard those Prized Amalgams.
And I believe he has one in hand.
He does.
Yeah.
As well as 2 Golgari Grave Trolls. So if he wants, he can use that Haunted Dead to very, very suddenly put a lot of power into play. So he's cracking a Bloodstained Mire, which provides the landfall for that Bloodghast. And that would normally be a really strong option to bring out the Haunted Dead, but of course he's already met that requirement with this Narcomoeba.
Right.
He is off to a very, very strong start this game.
This is looking very good.
Sylvius on a Malta 6 and with a relatively middling start is probably starting to sweat on the amount of pressure that Denis is offering.
Yeah. Denis is just going to do so much with so little mana. And again, he's going to have so many bodies on the battlefield, and Jund doesn't really react to multiple creatures very well.
Not well, no. It's a deck all about making favourable 1-for-1 trades. And it's really hard to make a 1-for-1 trade against the deck that is bringing back up to 8 recurrent threats every turn.
Yeah.
Not to mention the looming threat of a Conflagrate out of the graveyard.
Yes.
And of course, Denis has one in there. This is one of the starts that really prove how powerful Dredge can be in Modern.
Yep.
But Jund, the modern stalwart, this deck has been a pillar of the format since its inception, is not without tools. Sylvius plays 2 copies of Scavenging Ooze, which will allow him to devour the all-important creatures out of Denis's graveyard if he finds it and has time.
Yep.
He also plays 2 copies of Kalidas, Trader of Get, and when Kalidas is in play, it's going to start exiling Denis's creatures rather than putting them back in the graveyard to be reused, which is
A pretty big
hugely important. The fact that it makes 2/2 zombies to block with and is also a 3/4, which matches up well against the prized amalgams, is really gravy. It's very, very, very good combination of abilities. If Sylvius is able to get to 4 mana and start stabilizing, Kalidas is going to be one of the main ways that he gets back into this game after starting at a pretty substantial deficit.
Yep. Okay, so he's got a way to draw some cards. He's going to take some damage, possibly, off this Dark Confidant, but...
As the flavor text says, greatness at any cost.
That's right.
And in this matchup, it could be one hell of a cost.
Yeah.
Sylvius just took 6 points of damage this turn from Denis's board, and he is probably not looking forward to flipping some spells with that Dark Confidant. And
Wow.
A very early Confligate from Denis, removing the Dark Confidant and...
So just recognizing the value of the spell, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even though it does theoretically increase his clock to leave it around, the extra cards that Sylvius draws are too much of a risk for Denis.
Yeah, Denis might just... He's got the board advantage. He's still got that Haunted Dead sitting in the graveyard.
Yeah, he doesn't need to make many risky plays here. He is in a very dominant position and really wants to just keep the situation as it is.
Wow, and that
is the Scavenging Ooze, one of the crucial cards in this matchup. But it's very possible that the damage has already been done, and as well as missing the land drop there, Sylvius only has access to 1 green mana, and because it's a Bloodstained Mire and not a Verdant Catacombs or a Wooded Foothills, he is going to have to take some pain if he wants to use the Scavenging Ooze this turn.
Okay, and there is another prized amalgam in the graveyard. There's 2 in the graveyard, and I believe still 1 in his hand. Or has he discarded one? Oh, he discarded one of them to the faded.
Discarded to Confligate, yeah.
Confligate, yeah. Yeah, let's just have a look at the ooze there. So it's coming down for 2. It's a relatively small cost to start exiling creatures.
Yeah, but due to the speed at which Denis has filled his graveyard, Sylvius is going to be very, very taxed on green mana.
Yeah.
He has gone to find this Stomping Ground, unfortunately taking 3 damage when his life total is just so precious.
Yeah.
Because it's so important for him to start growing that Scavenging Ooze and getting rid of the easy activators for Denis's strategy.
Okay, and...
Another downside there, by taking that 3 damage, Sylvius has gone below 10, which means that every Bloodghast from now on is going to have haste.
Wow, yep.
So a Confligate for just 1, clearing away the Scavenging Ooze. Even though the Confligate did represent a lethal 2 points of burn, Denis judged it as more important. Sylvius has seen the writing on the wall.
Points a bolt to his face. Okay.
Yeah, he is the target of his own lightning bolt.
Okay.
So sideboarding is going to be very important for Sylvius. The Dredge strategy is a high-octane machine. It goes so fast, and as we've seen in the past couple of games, it's... So we've got
the deck list the wrong way around, unfortunately. Yeah. Sorry.
Our apologies. But, so, unlike the title card says, this is actually Sylvius's sideboard, and he is almost certainly pulling those Anger of the Gods, that Grafdigger's Cage, those Nihil spell bombs. They are going to be incredibly important going forward in this matchup. Anger of the Gods allows him to clear away the prized amalgams and the Bloodghasts forever. Nihil Spellbomb and Grafdigger's Cage keep them from getting there in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so a lot of good options for Sylvius here. How about Denis?
So Denis has less of an impetus to sideboard here. I think that he's probably soundly favoured in the matchup. The default plan of Jund matches up very poorly with the long-term value that Dredge's creature base provides, even though it's an incredibly aggressive deck that can really quickly end the game. If it comes to it, Dredge is very well set up to grind. So Lightning Bolts, Inquisitions and Fort Caesars, Liara of the Veil, none of them match up particularly well with Dredge's plan. It's possible that he's going to want his Abrupt Decay, his Ancient Grudges, maybe Piffing Needle. The amount of anti-hate that he brings in is probably going to be dependent on how confident he feels in the matchup. Also, a fringe possibility, Leyline of the Void, in a very similar reason to an earlier game when a Rest in Peace was played against a Jund opponent. It decreases the quality of a lot of their cards.
Right.
Sylvius's deck does not contain Grim Flail, so so the thing that is going to be impacted by a possible Leyline of the Void mostly just Tarmogoyf.
Okay.
But it would be my assumption that Denis is doing a reasonably light amount of sideboarding for game 2.
Alright. So okay, so players are just I think they finished their sideboarding and they're going to start shuffling up now. Okay, so would Sylvius be keeping his discard in?
I think that there's kind of forced to keep some of it. The Jund deck is set up with such a large amount of discard that stripping out all of it is going to be difficult, especially given that he has 10 main deck cards that discard from his opponent, his Lilianas, his Fort Caesars, his Inquisitions,
Yep.
As well as a Collective Brutality. None of those are really where you want to be against Dredge.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect him to take out the Lilianas, because worst comes to worst, they can eat
A
your
creature
opponent.
or
They can eat one of the many superfluous creatures that Dredge has. But the Inquisitions of Kozilek and the Fort Seas, pretty loose.
Okay.
They don't seem great.
Okay, but plenty of other things to do. Anger of the Gods, I think, could be a pretty big player here.
Certainly. Anger of the Gods is going to be one of the cards that Sylvius is looking for, I believe.
Yeah.
If he doesn't get to... Nihil, Spellbound, and Grafdigger's Cage are very powerful and can nuke a chunk of the graveyard or force Denis to find an answer before he can make forward progress.
Mm-hmm.
But Anger of the Gods is the thing that gets him out of a jam. The proactive pieces of disruption, you really need them early. You need to be using them proactively to stop Denis from enacting his plan. But Anger of the Gods is going to be one of the key players for Sylvius. Grafdigger's Cage, of course, is probably the better piece of one-mana interaction that he has access to.
Yeah.
As while it's in play, none of Denis's flashback cards, such as the Ancient Grudges in his sideboard, can interact with this. Can be used to interact with the cage.
Right.
He would need to naturally draw a piece of artifact removal to get it off the table.
Yeah, so this will probably be a pretty key piece, something that Sylvius
Certainly.
will be looking for.
If Sylvius is able to play this down on the first, second, or even maybe the third turn, he could completely change the pace of the game. But Denis is once again opening on Insolent Neonate.
Wow.
As always, threatens hugely powerful swings. So Sylvius is laying out a naked Tarmogoyf. That
Interesting.
is, unusually enough, a 0-1 right now. But, of course, Denis is being very obliging and sacrificing his Insolent Neonate to grow the Tarmogoyf. And obviously nothing else. So there's an Ancient Grudge from Denis, one of the pieces of anti-hate that he has access to.
Right.
But probably more importantly are the two copies of Bloodgast.
Right, and I think a prize amalgam might have got in there behind that Bloodgast.
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, Denis is pretty common with this Dredge deck, representing huge amounts of damage very, very quickly.
Yeah. How much will he would probably be aware of Anger of the Gods coming in from the board? How much do you think he might play around a card like that?
It's possible that he leaves a couple of options in his graveyard in case that happens, but I don't think that he's going to live in fear of that free mana sweeper.
Okay.
He's able to operate at such a fast pace that he could even get under the free mana defensive card or force Sylvius to use it at an inopportune time.
Right.
Clearing away 2 Bloodghasts and a prize amalgam is good. It's really strong, and it quite noticeably detracts from the power level of his deck in the later stages. But he's got 2 more Bloodghasts and 3 more prize amalgams.
Yep.
He's not out of enablers yet.
So it looks like that card was actually Abrupt Decay and not the prize amalgam.
I see.
Yeah. So Goif is so 3 types in the graveyard currently. So okay, 2 3-powered creatures, not the worst.
Definitely not. They are only okay relative to the Bloodcasts in a strict fight, because and there's the third Bloodghast.
Yep.
Because the resilient 2/1s can bash in against the Tarmogoyfs as many times as Denis feels is necessary.
Yep.
But he's got to be at least a little worried at the potential of a swing back from the Goyfs.
Yeah. Of course, the Bloodghast can't block.
They can't, so it costs him nothing to attack in, especially with his life from low active. He can make
Land drops
really
constantly.
as many land drops as he wants.
Okay, and what's that card that?
That there is a Stinkweed Imp, which normally used for the text Dredge 5 is also a very good defensive creature. Stinkweed Imp has a Death Touch-like ability. Whenever it deals damage to a creature, that creature is destroyed. So
Blocks pretty well.
yeah, it blocks pretty well. And as a flyer, it can also poke around in the air if that's what Denis is interested in. But its primary function is a massive roadblock for his opponent.
Okay, and then Sylvius is reading the text on the card again. It's always good to make sure.
Of course. Stinkweed Imp has a little bit of a weird formatting because it was printed before, like, the real codification of the Death Touch keyword.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and what was that?
It's a Knight of Soul's Betrayal from Sylvius,
Okay.
ending the Bloodghasts and also completely obviating the Stinkweed Imp.
It no longer can deal combat damage.
It's just a 0 run right now. Denis is definitely thrilled to block with it anyway, because it does have the keyword Dredge 5.
Yep.
But
Okay,
that Knight of Soul's Betrayal is has really quite substantially changed the amount of threats that Denis can provide.
Yep.
From now on, any insolent neonates that he draws cannot be used to trigger Dredge. He can bring back the Bloodghasts briefly, and as
Oh wow!
oh dear, as Denis just cried out in sadness, those Narcomoebas are very short for this world.
Just putting them on the right side of the graveyard there. They've entered and disappeared immediately.
Yep,
Very nice. Okay. Some powerful sideboard tech there from Sylvius.
certainly. Knight of Soul's Betrayal is a little bit ambitious, given that it does cost 4 mana.
Yep.
And it also isn't trivial for Sylvius. From now on, his Dark Confidants can no longer be played,
Mm-hmm.
and his Grim Lavamancer as well.
That's true, yeah.
So,
I guess
but
it has a slightly asymmetrical effect in his deck. It's going to hit a lot more of Denis's creatures.
certainly true.
Yeah.
Denis is able to trigger the resurrection of his Bloodghasts easily. So if once he starts hitting the prized amalgams, he will be able to start bringing them back as
Yep.
2/2s rather than 3/3s with ease. But this Night of Soul's Betrayal is going to do a lot of good work for Sylvius.
Yeah, he's got a Dreadball.
Dreadball for the Imp, clearing the way to get a bit of extra damage in.
Okay, just double check the size of the Goyf now as well.
While it's a little difficult to tell due to the size of the graveyard, I believe they are 3/4s.
They're still 3/4s, okay.
Due to the Night of Soul's Betrayal shrinking them a little bit.
Right. Okay, and so Denis is down to 5.
He's in a bit of a bad spot. The Night of Soul's Betrayal has...
It's turned a lot of his pieces off.
It's made his deck of X1s look a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah.
He hasn't been able to find any prized amalgams to get back to defend himself. So he's really hoping that this Stinkweed Imp can do some work with its Dredge, and it looks to have done pretty well, finding both a Confregate and a Golgari Grave Troll.
Now, I wonder how many cards Denis has in hand.
It is something that it seems like he's got 6 cards in hand with access to a Life from the Loam from earlier. So I think he's probably thinking through whether he should be using his Confregate to
Take the Goyfs out?
take out the Goyfs, discard his whole hand, and clear the way. Of course, discarding your hand in a Dredge deck is less awful than it would be in almost any other strategy.
Yep.
Because, as it happens, graveyard is
It's kind of where you want your cards to be.
kind of what you want to be.
Okay, so he's able to pick up 2 extra cards by using Life from the Loam. Camera's getting knocked around a little bit, but still mostly in place.
Yeah, so the Goyfs are
going down.
burnt up by the Confregate
Yep.
at a pretty substantial cost to Denis, having to discard a lot of cards, and he's now putting himself in very, very dangerous territory if Sylvius is to find a Nihil Spellbomb or even a Grafdigger's Cage with no backup cards in hand. That Dark Confidant is not long for this world. As we said earlier, the Night of Soul's Betrayal is applying to the whole battlefield,
Not just to
Denis.
Dredge. Okay. And then Sylvius obviously just... everyone having a laugh there,
Yeah.
I think you can hear on the stream.
A bit of a misstep there for,
Yeah.
for Sylvius. Just a tad. So Denis is now using this opportunity to start rebuilding. Only originally a little bit with the Life from the Loam will allow him to start picking up more lands and getting his hand size. Just seems to be replacing a damaged sleeve here.
Yep. Okay, and I think we finally have a Amalgam in the graveyard. It's one of the creatures that will be able to return and deal some damage.
Yeah, it looks like a prize amalgam there, just hiding underneath that Stinkweed Imp.
Yep.
So all of these Bloodglass will give their lives to summon a 2/2.
So I guess the other big creatures Denis might be looking for here are the Grave Trolls.
Yeah, he
Those
does
ones.
have the mana to cast a Golgari Grave Troll, and as you can see, he is reaching for one's Dredge.
Yep.
And with all of these creatures in his graveyard, it's going to be a big boy, that little Grave Troll.
Yeah.
As when it enters play, it looks at every creature in Denis's graveyard and gets a +1/+1 counter for each.
Okay, so I count lots.
Yeah,
I think. Okay.
just lots.
Okay.
I agree with your count. There is something of a risk to Denis in that Dredge 6 is a lot of his deck. It represents a 10th, and he, as you can see from his graveyard on screen, he's gone through a lot of cards.
Yep.
If Sylvius is still holding on to things like Terminate and other targeted removal spells, he could stop those Grave Trolls from really being as significant as they otherwise would be.
Yeah.
Because even if they are sitting there as a 40 bajillion, they still die to a Terminate.
Right. So in some ways, Denis is in a good spot, but Sylvius just because of the nature of the removal in his deck. Maybe he's able to combat things from this point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even though the dredge mechanic means that theoretically Denis has access to all the cards in his graveyard whenever he wants them, his library is finite.
Yep.
He's going to run out of cards in it eventually. So he has to be careful in spacing out these Golgari Grave Troll dredges, especially since he has a limited range of motion from the Knight of Soul's Betrayal.
Right.
And it seems like that was exactly what happened. We were a bit frozen for a while.
Yep.
But the Grave Troll was on top of the graveyard, and Sylvius has placed a Terminate down there.
Right.
Possibly two Terminates. We could have...
There might have been two creatures.
Could have missed out on something else as well. So here's a Scavenging Ooze, which is huge in this spot. But Sylvius only has 1 green mana.
Wow. Okay.
So he's going to have to make a couple of choices in what he goes after. And understandably...
Go straight for the Price Amalgam. Makes sense.
One of the most important cards in Denis's graveyard right now.
Yeah. And Denis says that he can't necessarily start getting aggressive here. He's only on 4 life.
Yeah. The Scavenging Ooze is only a 2/2 right now because of the Knight of Soul's Betrayal. But Sylvius has 2 green mana, and 2 plus 2 is 4. So Denis is either going to need to find a solution to it or a way of getting some blockers. So Denis just found another Confligate.
Yep.
Which, if he wanted to, could solve the Scoots problem.
I think he's just got the 2 cards in hand, so he'd have to use them again in his library.
Just making sure that he is not in immediate risk of milling himself out.
Yep. So he does, so time is running out for him. He does need to find a way to deal 18 damage before he runs out of cards. Yeah.
He certainly is interested in ending this game quickly.
Okay, comes in for the damage. And just knows he has to kill that Scavenging Ooze. So
it just threatens to run away with the game if left unchecked.
Yep.
So the 2 cards he has in hand, toss to the graveyard. And that is a little bit difficult for Denis because that Grave Troll represented a huge threat that Sylvius would have had a lot of trouble dealing with. But as you can see, Sylvius is empty-handed and Denis has a Priced Amalgam.
Yep.
It's not the fastest clock in the world, but it's one that is going to get the job done if left unchecked. So Denis is running pretty dangerously low on cards now. Yep. I don't think he'll be able to get back many Grave Trolls after this one.
Yeah. Well, there it is. Let's see how many counters we end up with on this thing.
Doing some maths in our heads for probably the biggest creature we've had on combat on camera today.
Yeah, I'd say
by
so.
a decent margin.
Yep.
Yep.
So we'll find out. Apologies about the freezing frames again. It should be coming back to us in not too much time.
That's certainly the hope.
Yep. Okay, but we know it's going to be a big one. A 2020 is what we found.
Not bad.
So Sylvius suddenly needs to find something immediately
Desperately.
off the top of his deck.
And he doesn't have a huge number. He's already used at least 1 Dreadbore and at least 1 Terminate, which leaves Maelstrom Pulse as one of the few clean removal spells that he has access to.
Yeah.
Liliana of the Veil are going to do very little because that Prized Amalgam, which has been sticking around and doing a good job. Well, that's the game.
Wow. Sorry about missing that last bit, but I presume Sylvius just did not draw what he needed to draw there.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So battled through, quite a few spells that, particularly the Knight of Soul's Betrayal that really turned a lot of the synergies and power in his deck off, but there's still plenty of other redundancies.
Definitely.
In the deck.
Even that sort of hate, which is quite significant because so much of the deck's power is the fast aggressive creatures that you get out of the graveyard, having all of them turned off is a major detriment. But it doesn't actually stop the strategy.
Yep.
Unlike the Anger of the Gods or the Nihil Spell Bombs, which get rid of a chunk of Denis's threat base and keep it gone, the Knight of Souls Betrayals didn't actually stop Denis from using those Bloodghasts to power out more prized amalgams.
Yeah.
And of course,
The creatures were still in the graveyard for the
they're
grave
still
troll.
there. The grave troll is still going to count them when it's checking how ginormous it is.
Yep. Of course. So Sylvius, I mean, not making it to the finals, but still making the semis. It's a pretty good achievement. And there's our check for him. He's just won
His prize
$30.
money for this event.
Yep. So congrats to Sylvius. And picking up a healthy dose